Welcome back to Geeks and Grounds, a monthly game club and weekly podcast where we play games and brew good conversation together. I'm your host, Jenny Wyndham.
And I'm Joel Thomas.
There's been a murder, Joel. There's been like 60 murders.
I'm sorry, can we get another take of that, but in the correct voice?
Oh, right. Well, I don't know how to do there's
Your
a murder.
line was, there's a murderer, there's been 60 murders. Go ahead.
There's been...
Yep. I'm going to count you down from 3. Ready?
Okay,
3.
Get ready.
2.
There's been I cannot do a pirate accent with that phrase. For some reason, that phrase, tell me to say something else as a pirate. Return of the Obra Dinn.
Okay.
That's a little better.
All right. That's really good.
Okay,
I
now
like
that let's see, I'm in character now. There's been a murder.
Yes.
That's a little better. Okay, I just had to get into the right headspace. Thank you.
We all knew Jenny was a multi-threat talent, and here we go. The new one is pirate accents.
I said I'm going to try to do an accent, and it will be the end of Geeks and Grounds, and you all witnessed and heard the end just now.
Wow.
So thank you. That was a wonderful episode. It was lovely seeing you all, hearing from you all, and farewell.
Is there champagne? Do you break it on the ship as you're sailing off to search for booty, or what's
I wish there was, but unfortunately these killer crabs have shown up and ruined the party.
Arr. This is my number one critique of the game. Not enough R's. I need more R's.
Yeah. So for folks who are new, or if you need a little refresher, we are playing Return of the Obra Dinn, and we are enjoying that for the month of May. We had started the discussion in last episode, so if you are joining us for the first time, it may behoove you to go back to the first one, but we're also taking this game a little bit differently, where it's a non-linear game, so honestly, you probably, if you're playing it, could join in right now, and I think it probably would work just fine. Mm-hmm. Every week, we're going to deep dive a section of the game, talk about what we've played, go through what we enjoyed, provide some feedback on our experiences, and maybe feedback for what we would have done or wanted differently from the game, and I have a lot of thoughts on this game, and I think I wasn't sure about it at first. I will say I really liked it when I hopped in, and then when I went in for my second session to play, that second session, I wasn't sure. It's like, oh my gosh, I had a great first impression, and the second time I'm going in, I don't know if I like it. But I'm happy to say that I have come out of that, and I think this is a solid game, but it took me a minute to get my sea legs back.
I'm really glad that you are liking it. Again, that's wow. I can just see the podcast ratings dipping in real time.
Yep. I feel it. I feel it right now in my spirit. But before we get into more pirate puns and talking about our experience with Obra Dinn, we like to stop by the Pastry Case. It's our grab bag of topics from the industry and also just our personal experiences. What else have we been up to? What's on our minds? What have we been playing, watching, reading, and listening? Joel, what have you been up to?
I got to give my weekly shout out to Claire Obscure Expedition 33 right now. I have made it through Act 1, and I am now doing my favorite thing in open world games, which is hopping onto TikTok, looking up the most powerful weapons I can get based on the map that I've unlocked, and then traveling all around to get them. So kind of delaying the inevitable journey into Act 2. Until that happens. How about you? You're playing too, right? How's it going for you?
I am playing. I'm going so much slower than everyone else, but I really am enjoying it. So that's intentional on my part, because I know you only get to experience games like this for the first time once, and I really want to for me, my enjoyment comes from playing it slowly and really digesting it. And I am, for folks who are playing, I'm in the Gestural Village for the first time, and I love them so much. And the game is outstanding. I still am just having a blast with it. I will say Gustav is a little bit of he annoys me a little bit.
He's the worst character.
Yeah, I'm like, he's a little annoying, and every time he says something, I am usually like, Gustav, shut up, please.
Oh, God damn it, Gustav. I am right there with you. I don't know how they have made a main character that is so not likable, but they have succeeded in that.
Yeah, at first I was like, oh, he's kind of soft boy, like basic, and then I was like, oh, he's kind of soft boy, a little derogatory. And then I think, I love Lune, but so far, and I'm only in Act 1, so maybe all of this also changes as you go into Acts 2 and 3. But for me, I'm like, oh, I want more characterization with Lune because I love her so much. But yeah, this is me being super nitpicky. I love the game. The game is so good, and I'm having a blast with it. I have learned for myself, I am a parry or nothing player now.
I've totally migrated. I am 100% on the parry game. I don't dodge. I mean, I jump, but like I am like so thoroughly addicted to the rhythm mechanics of this game in a way that I have like, I play Souls games. Like I never learned to parry, and I am loving this. It's so good.
Yeah, I think you and folks in the Discord all suggested, and rightfully so, pay attention to the audio cues. Don't try to aim for the visuals. Like, just trust your ears. And that has helped so much. And I think it's after probably about, I would say, 8 to 10 hours of playing, which is a lot of time. But I think about 8 hours of playing where I finally decided I'm not going to dodge. I feel like that's causing more pain and anxiety than anything else, and I'm just gonna parry because if I dodge and fail, I just feel sad. If I parry and fail, I feel more energized and motivated. Like I'm gonna do this next time. I'm gonna kick its ass. So yeah, it's been great having that realization and just going forward with that in mind.
In the words of Brennan Lee Mulligan, would you rather achieve greatness or avoid disappointment? And
is that from the episode where everyone's trying to be mid and he keeps being the best? Because I literally watched that last night. He said something very similar to that last night when I watched
It's actually from an interview that he's doing on his like D&D show. And he has like one person and they're talking about snacks. And the question is, do you like pie or cake more? And they're like, the ceiling for cake is so much higher than the ceiling for pie. And he's like, well, are you trying to achieve greatness or are you trying to avoid disappointment? And it's like, whoa, what?
That's amazing.
Oh, so good.
Only he could do that to the cake and pie debate.
I know. If I could give one bit of non-spoiler advice for Expedition players who are in the Gestural Village, when you get to kind of the big ultimate scene while you're in that location, play with your favorite character.
Okay. Ooh, that's hard because I do give Lune a lot of love, but I think Mael's like something about her has my heart. She's so endearing. Something about her, I was just really charming.
Mael's badass. She's just like a very cool character.
That's going to be a tough pick. All right.
Yeah.
I'll report back.
Yeah, let us know. But yeah, very much enjoying that. Just a quick final update on The Antidote by Karen Russell. Fully finished this book and loved it. The ending had me in my feelings. It was like such a culmination of the different storylines that you're following. It had, brilliant points of magic and poignant commentary on society. Just such a good book. So highly recommend that one.
Nice.
And I can't believe I have not talked about this yet, but anime alert, the Lazarus show on HBO. This is from the creators of Samurai Champloo, Cowboy Bebop. I have learned that it takes place in the same universe as those two shows.
What?
But before they occur, they're not to my knowledge, there's no connected characters or anything, but here's the one sentence Joel Thomas synopsis. We are exploring a world where a small group of outlaws try to find a scientist who engineered a wonder drug that turns out to not be so wonderful, as it is set to murder everyone who has ever taken it in the next 30 days. And so it's this very compressed timeline. I'm enjoying it. It is a very vibey show. For those of you who haven't watched Bebop or Champloo, the soundtrack really carries it. They kind of brought to light a lot of the lo-fi, Japanese lo-fi sounds The only complaint that I have is the same complaint that I have with the other two shows, which is that like the pacing of the dialogue is so laid back. And I'm just like, I can't tell if this dialogue is trying to be very realistic and it's missing the mark, or if it is trying to be very stylized and it's just that style doesn't necessarily work for me. So
yeah. Well, you just named two of my favorite anime of all time, so I will definitely be checking this out. That's awesome.
Yes. And the animation is obviously top tier. Highly recommend.
Yeah, I saw. Is it Mappa that did it? Yeah. So they
don't miss.
Yeah, I was gonna say they've done so much just really impressive work. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And what else have you been getting into?
Expedition 33. That's like the big thing. I think I actually was just checking. There's a game that I played a demo of that I will have to share next week. But the demo I can share is Twinklebee, which is this really cute, cozy game. If you have seen other sandboxy games where you just have a small environment and you get to decorate it, make it your own, very toy-like, this is just one of those. Just another example of one of those. I really appreciated how it felt very much like a toy, though. The rendering is very, not quite Zelda Link's Awakening remake, but it has that type of feel to it, the charm. And what you have are floating islands that you get to build houses on, and inhabitants come and you get to place objects to just make them happy. And it's very, very chill. I played the demo first for my channel, and then I ended up playing it and just listening to a podcast and just putting down furniture because it was just really relaxing and simple, and my brain has been needing relaxing and simple. So especially on top of Expedition 33, Obra Dinn, which is making me think real hard.
Mentally taxing, yes.
And I've also been going through blueprints as well in much a slower capacity, but did you start blueprints?
I have only played the demo. I purchased it, and then it was like a week later that Expedition 33 came out, and I've just been...
I know. It's, oh my gosh. Like, I don't know how this happened where we have 2 Game of the Year contenders out in the same 2-week span, but here we are. Yeah, I've been trying to like go back into blueprints and just casually get my bearings because I really want to get back into it before it's too long. And yeah, so blueprints is kind of a honorable mention. I haven't played enough to make it a significant thing, but I'm still loving it. It's still really good. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Such a cool game.
Yeah. And then I've had a headache. Like I mentioned, that's why we're recording this a little later. And so the only thing I've really had the capacity for lately is watching reruns of Malcolm in the Middle, which is an outstanding show.
Does it hold up?
At least the episodes I've seen, it's from the 90s, early 2000s. There are moments that don't hold up, but I think overall as a show, it holds up far better than you would think. And It's really cool because I think I didn't have the awareness of this when I was watching it for the first time as a kid, but now that I'm older and I'm watching it, I'm constantly, every time I revisit it, I forget and am reminded about how it's about a family that feels a lot more like my family did in terms of just socioeconomic status. Like, This is a family that they're trying to like get coupons. They're dealing out like, all right, well, you get the last 2 slices of pizza and you get these leftovers because we aren't going to like buy you fresh lunch, things like that. And those little touches, their lawn isn't mowed. Things like it's just the details are so good. And it's just funny. It's a funny family sitcom.
It's such an earnest take on like class relations, and the premise of like you have this hyper genius child, and how does the family dynamic and people like within this socioeconomic group, like how does that impact their lives? Like, it's really interesting. And I think it all kind of comes to a head in later seasons as they talk about like Malcolm's future. So I anytime I watch clips from it today or see old things, I'm like, man, this show had a message, and I appreciated that.
It did. And it's probably the most relatable, or one of the more relatable family sitcoms. Like if I go back, I think I remember trying to go back and watch like Full House, because I remember as a kid, every once in a while I got to watch Full House, and I thought it was so cool. I was in elementary school. I watched Full House, and I was like, I don't know. It's all right, I guess. It's fine.
It is so hygienic. Like
yeah,
it's so pristine.
It's like sterile.
It's sterile. That's the word.
Yeah, there's not any. I'm like, nobody lives like this. You watch it, nobody lives like this. And so it's nice watching a show like Malcolm in the Middle, where it felt very honest and earnest. I think that's a good word that you used, earnest in that way. So that's been a fun rewatch.
Very cool. Hop back into that sometime.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's it for that. Now, for game releases this week, we have got a couple notables. Again, I like to just highlight a couple, not to overwhelm, just to shout out there's some cool games coming. The first is Desktop Survivors 98. It's coming out May 20th on Steam. I saw this at PAX and it was so fun. Their booth had like an old Windows 98, a couple of old Windows 98-esque computers. Like the protagonist looks kind of like Clippy, but a sword. And this is a play on roguelike dungeon crawlers and the desktop sort of idlers. And so this is a game that plays out on your desktop. And so it's meant to be sort of a break. Like if you're working, you can hop in and do a couple of rounds. And it's just very silly, very fun. Where did I put it? They had actual CD like cases, the dual CD cases that you would get with computer games as a kid. They had them for sale with the Steam key. And so I ended up buying it when I was at PAX, but it's really cute. It has a demo if you want to give it a try. But that's Desktop Survivors 98.
I gotta say, like, if you're looking for a reminder of these, like, the Windows 95 experience, this is like I'm watching the trailer for it, and is absolutely nailing that aesthetic. Like, the 3D modeling of like characters is just like, oh yes, I remember this so clearly.
So good. It's got that like sort of slow chunkiness to it, but it's not like, doesn't play slow or chunky. It just has that feel that all of the assets did back in the day. Yeah, really cool. I love it. All it needs, and maybe it has it later, is just like, you know, those glitter GIFs that used to exist? There's more glitter at some point. We're sold.
If there's not glitter, you're not in the 90s. Yeah. That's the bottom line.
Like sparkly glitter and then like a cat, like a white cat, because that's usually what happened on those pages.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Very fluffy white cat. And the other game that I wanted to shout out that's coming out this week on May 22nd is Duck Detective: The Ghost of Glamping. I thought this is especially poignant, and I think I may have also shouted it out in the last newsletter, just as like a, hey, if you want something a little bit easier on your brain, but you love deductive stuff, Duck Detective series, super charming. If you are listening or reading the newsletter and you're like, I have kids and I really want to do this kind of game, but Obra Dinn is not for kids, Duck Detective is a great alternative. And this was the sequel, and I think you're the Duck Detective and his friend going on a camping trip, and something happens and a mystery needs to be solved.
Oh, that's very cool.
It's very cute.
Love it.
Yeah, it's got a Paper Mario feel, and there's a demo too if you want to give it a shot. All right, so as always, feel free to hit up geeksandgrounds.com where you can sign up for the newsletter. You can, where all of these links and the link to the podcast will be included, so you get everything in your inbox, which is always nice, not having to rely on social media for stuff. And also you can get a link to the Discord if you go to geeksandgrounds.com. And I think that's it for the pastry case. So let us sail on over to this month's brew, Return of the Obra Dinn.
There once was a ship that went to sea. I am so thrilled to be hopping in, and you know, we talked about like the non-linear aspect of this game. So because I accidentally finished it in the first go, we're going to be playing through in the order that Jenny is experiencing the chapters today. So I think the big three are the Escape, Murder, and Soldiers of the Sea. So we learned as we were kind of prepping for this that this is not the order that I experienced the game, and some of these like as I'm like going back through like what happened in those chapters, like that is very different. That would have a very different impact on my understanding of what is happening. So I'm pretty excited for this.
Ooh, that's cool. Just for folks who may have like played through already, and for folks who maybe want the context to see where you're coming from, do you have the orders of the chapters that you went through as you finished the game?
The two that so it's close. So I did in this order. I went into a bitter cold, loose cargo, and soldiers of the sea. So that one we have in common for this part.
Ooh, okay.
But I feel like loose cargo and soldiers of the sea fit together pretty nicely. A bitter cold felt very out of place when I played it. It was like, why am I seeing this at all? So I'm really curious to see if it makes more sense when you get into it, and we talk about it next week, I'm assuming, to see how that plays out.
That's really cool. I cannot wait, because I felt like the 3 chapters that I focused on, again, Escape, Murder, Soldiers of the Sea, those 3, it was so high octane the entire time. Like, so this was my 3rd session. I played basically through those 3 chapters in one go. I played the end in my 2nd session. And I tried to like knock out all of the guesses, and it just took me a long time. So that's what my 2nd session was finishing out the end, just completing the chapter, getting the little achievement, because I am trying to get all of the fates. But yeah, these 3, God, it was just a lot. Like, I think by the end, I did have to stop Soldiers of the Sea because I was, playing really late at night, so I was getting sleepy, and you cannot play this game if you are tired because you can't, you need your brain for this game. Yeah. But also, there was so much that happened. I got to the point where I realized I needed to stop because there was just too much information in my brain. And that's also what was making me sleepy.
All of this makes perfect sense. I just want to call out, I got a lot of feedback about only solving 6 fates in my first run. And
it was positive. It was all positive.
It was mostly positive. And what I will say is I only completed 6 fates. So that means you know who the person is, you know what happened to them, and if someone's responsible for that, you know who that person is. I couldn't figure out a lot of names, but I figured out how almost everybody died or missing or whatever. So I just would like,
I think
for
you're
a
doing
little
a great
bit of
job.
recognition that I solved a lot of murders, even if I don't know. Okay, well, solved is too strong of a word because solving a murder implies that you know who committed it. But I know how a lot of people died, and that's an important step.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Things you never think you'd say until you play video games.
There it is.
No, well, okay, and I will say, now that we're in we are in the game, we're in the thick of it, I think you could still enjoy this game. And now I see what you're saying, because I wasn't at that point last week. I was just starting. This week I can see, hey, I don't think you do need to solve all the fates to feel like you got what you need out of this game. I think for the people like me who are puzzle game sickos a little bit, like that kind of satisfaction is what this game has, and I'm loving it, and I want to channel that. But I think the game is solid enough in its narrative that you don't need to do it, and you can still really enjoy the narrative and enjoy what Lucas Pope has set up in terms of how this game works, and how what I think is super cool, where the mechanics and the narrative itself and the sequence of events, like, they are so intertwined and it's so embedded. It's incredible. And I don't think there is any other game like it. So that's really neat.
I fully agree with that. And, I was kind of doing some reflecting about maybe why I am satisfied just kind of letting go of some of these things.
Yeah.
I am not really an achievement or completionist when it comes to video games in life. And I was thinking about when I was a young person and playing Sonic Adventure 2. And I think I've told this story before, but like, I beat almost the entire game. I got to the very last like chapter or scene with like it was Sonic or Shadow or whoever.
Yeah.
And my youngest brother completely erased my file. And I think that was the moment for me. Like, that's when I changed to be like, nothing matters. Anything can be taken away from me at any time. And so I'm just going to get the gist and I'm going to move forward.
I mean, what a harsh lesson to learn at the tender age of young.
15-ish.
Yeah, young Joel at the tender age of child. Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because I am an overachiever typically, like in school, at work. I do tend towards that type of interaction and behavior. But I normally would not call myself a person who is very achievement focused or like completionist about the games that I choose to play. But something about puzzle games, and specifically these informational, deductive kind of puzzle games. Grun was the same way, where I played it, and once I realized it was a puzzle game, I ended up 100%ing it in about a day. I think it was maybe a day and a half, technically. Outer Wilds, similarly, I didn't get all of the achievements, but I was like, I need to get all of the notes. So something about puzzle games unlocks that in me, where I can, like Expedition 33, I will go through the story and be very content, and I will maybe do some side quests, but I will absolutely not be 100% trying to completionist everything.
Sure.
Final Fantasy Remake and Rebirth. At first I was like, maybe I should do this. No, I realized very quickly, no, I'm not going to 100% this. I'm just going to enjoy the story and move on. But yeah, puzzle games, that's a whole different can of worms.
We appreciate. So as a reminder, everyone, like you are an insurance investigator. You are finding clues as to what happened to the people aboard the good ship Obra Dinn. And last week we played through arriving at the ship, the mechanics of how this game works, and really the fact that you're dealing with apparently a mutiny, and that's the big mystery, is there's been some sort of mutiny. But I think, as we're going to see today, there is more than meets the eye. And I will say some of the most unsettling things that I have seen in a game we see in the chapters that we're discussing today.
Yup. I can confirm.
Can confirm? Okay.
And I agree. One of the things I wanted to shout out, because it was a question I posed in the newsletter and in the Discord, just about some general tips. And a lot of the tips I think we've talked through just in our conversations already, but I wanted to highlight some just points that I remember folks mentioning, because in this game, as you're trying to be your insurance collector self, deducting, figuring out who died, how, you have to pay attention to a lot of things. And at first it was really overwhelming, because you are just given a list of 60 odd names, a glossary term of ships, words, and pictures of faces that are mostly blurry. And so I felt a little bit at a loss as to where to even start, because you have nothing, it feels like, to go off of. One of the things that folks pointed out, and I think we talked about, were paying attention to accents, paying attention to outfits. You don't have to know, like, oh, this was the Frenchman's uniform in 1803. You don't have to know that, but if you pay attention to clothing and the patterns, you can start making those associations. And I think it was Valis who linked a really helpful Google Doc that someone created called the Inspector's Notebook, where it is designed to help you take notes, which honestly, I think I may go in and try to transfer some of my attempted notes into that, because, so shout out to Valis, because I tried taking my own notes in the way I normally do for games, and it is so jumbled and so confused, because so much of this game is based on the audio cues and the visual cues that you get. And it's kind of impossible, other than narrative notes at this point. Like, I'm taking notes on what I think are the timeline events, but that's not helping me with my fates. And so I'm excited to go into this Inspector's Notebook.
That's a great idea. I mean, it's almost like I'm thinking through other tools that I use just like in my day-to-day life, and it's like things that let you like hashtag out keywords and then like find any like entry that uses that hashtag. Like, oh yeah, like that would really help. Using the physical note, like I think my total pages of notes for this game are like 3, because at a certain point it's so not helpful. It's like I don't even know what to write down about the clue that I'm gathering here. Like I know it matters and I don't know how to record it in a way that I can reference it and have any idea what it means later.
Yeah, which is really interesting because, again, I think everything that I've heard from people talking about this game, my own initial impression is, oh, this is a game you got to take notes, and you're going to take notes. Frankly, the in-game notebook does do a really nice job, despite some, I think I still agree with the critiques that we had of it last week, where I think it could have maybe offered the option to players to be a little bit more accessible. But overall, I think the notebook is honestly pretty well designed and very helpful when I need it to be. It's just weird because I had envisioned myself writing a ton of notes, and I have, 2 pages of very random words and bullet points that don't really connect to anything.
That is exactly where I found myself. Totally agree with that.
And shout out again to the conversation in Discord. I think it was related to the idea of like, is this game respecting our time as players? And I would love to hear like if you have any thoughts on that, because that's a really good question.
What I would say is the fact that it lets me complete the game without having all of the answers is an indicator that it is respecting players' time. Like you choose your own level of commitment.
Yeah.
It's almost like the downside is you're on one spectrum. Like it's not so much a spectrum as it is like you're binary. You're here or you're here. And it's almost like I want a dial that I can say like, okay, but here's how much time I have. And I have enough time that like I would review every single one of these scenes. They don't have to be in order, but like if I could easily access them and just hop into them, and then like it's my job to figure out the order, it's my job to like piece these story elements together, I would love that after I had like unlocked everything. So I think like where I am is generally, I think this game does respect players' time. I just think if you are a like mid-tier level of interest when it comes to like your completionist habits, that's where it's like it doesn't quite hit that point of satisfaction for me. So yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about puzzle games, especially because I'm playing this and Blueprints, and you know, I've recently thought about maybe revisiting Outer Wilds because I'm now starting to forget certain parts of it, and I'm really hoping I can replay it at some point. And what's really interesting, Animal Well as well, where we have these puzzle games, and Obra Dinn I think is a little bit early in the timeline, but especially lately, you have puzzle games that are really good up to a point for most everyone, for casual players, for hardcore players, but then there's that like kind of that moment, sort of like the binary you were mentioning, where they all of a sudden become really hardcore. Like Animal Well, you can roll credits, no problem. It's after rolling credits, if you want those puzzles, you have to get very hardcore. Blueprints, similarly, you can roll credits on that, not without too much of a fuss. You can.
Oh, really?
Most people, I think, could do it. The game is really accessible in that way, or it feels to me pretty accessible in that way. But then after you roll credits, that's like you get into hardcore territory. And while Obra Dinn is what did we say was 2018? When did Obra Dinn?
Yeah, 2018.
Obra Dinn is a long time ago now. Stop. So it's not coming from the same group of puzzle games as right now, but it has what feels like a little bit of that, the hints of that starting, where it's like you can do the game and you can go through it, but if you want to like really play it, quote, you know, go a little bit more hardcore, there is that skill cutoff that the game has for players. So I don't know. It's the thing I've been thinking about with puzzle games in particular that I think is really interesting.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think the other thing that was being discussed in Discord related to Blueprints is there's so much chance involved in blueprints that I think that's like a critique of whether or not it's respecting players' time is like, I've rolled credits. I have all of the secrets in my notebook. I know like what's going on, and yet I can't get to these specific things that I would need to like 100% it, because the game just didn't happen to generate the rooms that I would need to do that again. And I think it's a really fair critique, and I have no idea how a game developer creator could possibly solve that.
Yeah, that's it's some of the, well, I won't get too much into blueprints, but I think what is interesting, maybe to bring it closer to Obra Dinn territory, is I think it's interesting that Obra Dinn is almost the opposite of that, where there is no RNG. Everything is in front of you the whole time. Once you have found the scenes, you have everything. And so I think it's also interesting that this conversation is happening in Discord, comparing blueprints and Obra Dinn, because they're both strongly deductively based puzzle games that have almost different sort of foundations and how they want the player to interact with them, which is really cool. So
I hadn't thought of it like that. That's a really good point.
So my brain is hurting from playing both at the same time, but it's been very fun.
Oh, that's hence the headaches. Now all the pieces are coming together.
That's why I'm having all these headaches. It's just my big brain growing.
Okay. Well, now I don't feel so bad because you're about to Einstein us. So okay, good to know.
So yeah, I'm trying to think. I guess let's start at chapter 9, Escape.
Yeah.
So, Escape. This chapter, okay, I think this was the most interesting chapter because it's the first time we started exploring more levels below deck. Up until now, we had been on the main deck, and you go one level down to the cannon room, but other than that, the ship felt quite small. And this is the first chapter where the ship opens up. You now have another level below. You have expanded into what seems to be some like eating sort of areas. And I loved that. It made me feel, again, for the first time, it made me excited. Like the game had more to discover, and I just didn't have the whole ship like already mapped out, So that was very cool.
Totally agree with that. Like it was almost like the first time you hop into a painting in Mario 64 and you're like, oh, like there are worlds of worlds here. And it's strange because everything is so stylistically similar, but once you're in those spaces, it's almost like you're not even like mystically hopping back into bodies. Like you see the destruction in like the present day, and it is engaging. Like you just have to wonder. It's like, what happened here? Like there's a giant hole in the ship there, and it doesn't look like cannon fire. How did that get there? Like those questions just pop up constantly just by looking at the environment. You don't see any bodies, you don't do any flashbacks, but the game really draws you in doing that.
Yeah. I guess just to go over in terms of plot, what is happening? This is chapter 9. So this is happening before the mutiny chapter. And this is essentially the escape of what seems to be a group of about 4 people in a lifeboat off the side of the ship. And as they're trying to escape, there are other members of the crew who are trying to stop them and or trying to assist them and let them go free. So what was interesting for me is I'm still in the dark. I don't know why we're trying to escape. I imagine it's maybe because of the Kraken that happened a couple chapters earlier. I imagine it's because there's mutiny fomenting, and perhaps especially because this lifeboat had 2 women in it, they are trying to get out to safety. But I have no idea what's going on other than that. There is no why. There is no motive for anything other than, I assume, getting to safety.
Did you at this point, so like if we, like the 3 hard facts that we have are that there's been a mutiny, there's a Kraken, so there's like something supernatural afoot, and that there was a series of very bloody encounters between ship members.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, what are you thinking about the captain of the ship? And like, I want to keep asking you this question kind of as we move through the game, because I think this is one of the hardest elements of like the plot to uncover just in general in the whole game. So I'm curious about, like, based on what you're seeing now, like, where does the captain fit into all of this?
I don't think super highly of the captain currently. I don't have a ton to base it on other than a gut feeling, but I think, and there's some other stuff in that we discover later that helps inform this and helps solidify this. But at this point, I'm thinking, first of all, like, where is he? What is he doing? If he is truly a captain in charge of the ship, trying to make sure everything's okay, why is he not a part of this and trying to stop this? And so for me, at the very least, he is a bad captain. At the very worst, he has a role, or a larger role, in some of the murders that we are seeing that we don't know yet, but it doesn't look good for him to me. I'm curious if you're able to isolate and remember what you were feeling as well at this time.
I think it is in this chapter, because this is like immediately preceding the Kraken arm, right? That they just kind of make reference to like a curse is upon us or something like that.
Yep.
And at that point, I was like, okay, did the captain do something to bring about this curse? Does he know about the curse and is not doing something to resolve it? Is the captain intentionally doing something to the curse? And it's like, at this point, I don't think there's any evidence that the captain has done anything specific here, but it's just like, all I'm trying to do is infer and deduce, like, what could have happened on this ship that the captain, like, because mutiny is like the leadership has to change, right? Like the leader has done something bad, but at this point, all we know is like they've used the word curse, and I'm not seeing anything proactive happening from the captain at this point.
Right. Yes, I had forgotten which chapter this was located in, but yeah, there was a thing where one of the people, I think he was like the one with the arm torn off from the beast.
That's the one.
He was the one who was like, because they were like, where did the beast go? And then they say a curse doesn't lift for nothing. And so, yeah, exactly. For me, especially because the captain is responsible for the decisions that happen on the boat, I feel like he has made some sort of call to bring this stuff upon them. Like, and this is where we get into some of the, maybe more of the tropes of, they're not pirates, but seaside adventures, or, you know, seafaring adventures where perhaps they found some treasure and they decided to take it. We'll talk about it, but you do find this treasure in one of the rooms in one of the chapters that we talk about today. So that for me reinforces this idea that there has maybe been some greed and some poor decision making on the captain's part that has put the crew in danger. And what's interesting to me is they do seem to realize it. Like, it's not something that he kept secret from them, or somehow they found out and they have talked about it. So that I thought was also interesting.
Yeah, like, who knows what and when is definitely like an important question here. So, you know, this chapter is called The Escape because you have a small group of people that are trying to take the last lifeboat off of the Obra Dinn, kind of post-Kraken attack or mid-Kraken attack. Some people, there seemed to be some implication that the captain chased away the Kraken, which is just like, all right, what are we saying? I don't know about that. But it's interesting because it seems as though it's like the captain and first mate seem to be aligned that they are willing to let this ship go with the handful of passengers, including the two women. But the crew seems not aligned, and they continue fighting. Like, someone gets stabbed.
Yeah.
The thing that's interesting to me is like, wait, if the captain and first mate are aligned, and this is chapter 9, and chapter 10 is when the first mate turns on the captain, like, wait, what happened between chapters 9 and 10? And like, I don't know that I can answer that question having finished the game.
Yeah. Okay. I was curious about that too, because what I think is really interesting about this game as we play it is, for me, it's really delineating the difference between the story and the narrative. The story being the dialogue, the specific things that characters say, and the ways that you can understand their backgrounds, their motives, their histories, their futures. And then you have narrative, which are a sequence of events in the plot, that move forward and backward in this case. I feel like I really I'm starting to gain an understanding of the narrative. I do not feel like I have understandings of the characters.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I guess we are insurance collectors. We're only there to account for their death and, their who they are and how they died.
That is a brilliant point, because it's like, we talk about like completing a fate is who is the person, how did they die, and if someone killed them, who killed them or what killed them.
Right.
That says nothing about why they killed them. And so maybe to your point, because like I have this question of why a lot having finished the game. And I'm sure that, again, if I were to like turn up the dial and really invest, I could suss most of it out.
Right.
But it is interesting that you frame it like that like your job as an insurance investigator is actually not to care about why. And maybe that's why like you're not getting prompted to like really put those pieces together at this point.
Yeah, which is a little, again, personally, I would love to know the why. I think there is some drama that you can infer, because also, as we learned from the end, the captain, I think, was married or at least engaged to Abigail, whose brother is his first mate. So it's like,
I think they're brother-in-laws.
Yeah, they're brother-in-laws. So drama.
Brothers-in-law? No.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Brothers-in-laws.
Brothers-in-laws. It is odd to me, and I think like this is something like I'm really eager to learn more from the community as we kind of get into like end game moments here to see like, well, what are you putting together for like the rationale behind some of these things?
Yeah. Which I think, while I find it slightly dissatisfying on the level of I would love to know what these stories are, it is fun because I think as we have all of this information, we can create a little bit of our own stories and make it our own and put our own motives into these characters, which that's a fun way to take it too. So, but yeah,
I like that.
I was thinking about that as I was playing. I'm like, I really have no idea. Like, I don't know anything about these guys, but a lot of them are related. A lot of them are like, they're married, they're cousins, they're brothers, and we don't talk about it ever.
Yes. And I mean, it's interesting because the thing that I really liked about this chapter in particular is that you are watching the violence escalate. And it's like, well, someone had like kind of a knee-jerk reaction here that ended up causing someone to die. And maybe it wasn't necessarily their like objective to kill this person, but it keeps kind of spinning out. It's like, well, I got to chase that person down and kill them, and like I got to chase that person down because they saw me kill him, and it's just that kind of cycle of violence.
Yeah, let's get into that, because what's happening on sort of the top deck by the lifeboats, that's what kicks off the chapter, if I remember. Like, if we're going in chronological order, that's what kicks off this chapter. But as the night progresses, the guy we talked about, the one who was talking about the Kraken and how the curse isn't going to be lifted, he and a group of men are in is it the cargo hold? They're below deck, like immediately below deck. And you see one person sort of behind a wall listening in on their conversation. And what I am assuming is he is the one, we hear a dialogue where he shouts mutiny. And that's when we get that official call of this is what's happening, or at least this is what he believes is happening. I'm curious because I don't think I heard a conversation that explicitly sounded like mutiny. And I don't know if I just didn't catch it and I don't remember it, or if it's not something we were shown, kind of like how we're not shown what happened between the captain and his first mate.
That's a good question. I don't remember if I
Okay.
experienced that or not.
Yeah.
I definitely do remember the call to mutiny, which is kind of like is that how you handle mutiny on board
Yeah.
ships like this? You just start yelling mutiny? Is that the best way to address this?
Right.
Maybe it is, and I just don't know, but
I don't know. It seemed to go very poorly because I think the person who called out mutiny is the one that gets sort of stabbed in the back, and he ends up sort of crawling, trying to go to safety. And like you said, it just escalates severely from there,
yep.
where two more folks sort of get into the fray. One of them gets essentially his head shot off. It's so gory, and it was so shocking to see. That one took me back a little bit because I think we've seen a lot of graphic death in this game. That is a very visceral one. Another guy sees that person get shot, then goes and bludgeons the person who shot the first guy. I mean, it's a party.
It's not
down
a happy
there.
time. Not
No.
a happy time aboard the Obra Dinn.
No.
It's interesting too. Like I think through the power of these still life moments, like we see a lot of kind of gore and violence in games. Something about the pixelated nature of these and how it's like not clear, and so your brain is doing extra work to make the gore be there. Your brain is forcing you to really investigate, like, wait, is that person being crushed by that thing, or are they being stabbed by that thing? And is that really a difference there? And like that is I think one of the things that makes this game really stand apart as being unique is like forcing your audience to color in the gore, forcing your audience to spend a lot of time in these scenes really looking at what's around them, means that like it's not, you shot someone in Devil May Cry and now you're running on to the next person to shoot, right? Like
Right.
you spend time seeing the impact of this violence in every scene. That's pretty impressive.
It is. And I didn't actually think about it until you put it like that. But I wonder, now I'm wondering, people who do crime scene investigations or have to do, I don't know if there's actually an insurance position that goes in and looks at stuff like this. I don't know, probably not. There's a job for anything at this point. But I'm like, man, people who have to do work like this, I hope they get therapy. I don't know. This would be so intense to do all the time because even in game, it's really intense.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Fully agreed. So any other big things that kind of stood out as a part of this escape chapter?
Let me see. I think that is mostly it. The escalation. I think we get another moment where one of the characters does say, and this is another moment where you do see some of the connections between the characters, a rare moment where I forget who, but he says, oh, I gotta tell Brennan's mom, or I told Brennan's mom I would take care of him. There's a reference to like Brennan and his mom, or Philip and his mom, I think. And that for me, especially because we get so few names and so few personal details, that one was a detail that stood out to me and was more memorable to me because it was oh my gosh, like this guy knows this other guy's mom. Like, this is a really intertwined community of people on this ship. Which is, well, specific, I think groups are pretty intertwined. We'll see. There's a little bit of division happening between groups, which we'll talk about, I think, in the next chapters, actually.
Yes, I think the next chapters, especially, you mentioned this in our very first episode, there's so many different like nationalities represented within this game. This feels like exactly like this next chapter, the murder is kind of exactly murder. Great. Is exactly the kind of almost xenophobia that I would imagine would occur in moments like this when there's high stress in these types of like close confined, close quarters
Yeah.
experiences, like something stressful, something bad has happened, I'm going to revert to my tribalism and like pin my frustration on an othered group.
Yes.
You also get in this new chapter a new kind of portrait, if you will. So this is actually kind of a point of confusion for me in the gameplay. But regularly, as we've been trying to figure out who these people are, you pull up a drawing that someone named ES did to that kind of shows an image of every person on the ship. So it's like, oh, I see this person getting their head blown off. Now I can pull up my fuzzy drawing and try and figure out whose head that is. Oh, it's that guy with the pointy hat. Okay, cool. So pointy hat gets his head blown off, and now I can move forward. In this chapter, you start getting another image. I think you start seeing it in this, where it's a person that is being kind of strung up on the ship with a firing squad pointed at them.
I think you have that image the whole time.
Oh, really?
In the book. Yes, you have that from the start.
So sometimes when you're like investigating, you see one image and sometimes you see the other. Have you noticed that? Like, and I don't know why you see one sometimes and the other
I
time.
assumed it's because between the two images, not everyone's represented on both. And so the character that you're investigating, it goes to the image that your character is in on the sketch.
Not everyone is represented in both. That had not even occurred to me. I was so frustrated with this part because I was like, wait, no, pointy hat. I need to see pointy hat right now. And it would take me to bald head, which is apparently also pointy hat, but it's just bald head in the shooting range shot.
Yes.
And so it did not occur to me that like whether a person's even in the picture might be informing which picture you're looking at.
I love that this is almost a real life. I know these drawings are very bad, but it's like the Spider-Man Clark Kent where it's like the pointy hat isn't on. It's a whole different person. It's not the same person.
You have pointy hat, bald head, and guy with his head blown off, and it turns out all three of those are William Shinga. I don't know, and it's that is who it is. Okay, good to know.
I'm glad we solved that mystery.
Wow,
oh.
Well done.
Thank you. But murder, I guess going chronologically, which I think is really interesting because you actually go backwards through all of these arcs, which is disorienting but really fun. But to go chronologically, you start, I think, on the side of the ship, like in sort of a side alleyway walk, and you see that, and this is actually relatively obvious. I felt like this was one of the more obvious murders where there is an Italian, like, violin player, sort of musician person. He gets murdered just in the side, and you're like, what's going on? Why is this guy getting murdered? Because the conversation that they have is literally, how are you doing, senor? Oh, great, good, let me help you. Stab. Walking around that first act of murder, though, you see a guard was taken out, so I guess there's been 2 murders in the scene, but there is a room with a shiny object inside. What seems to be like a fancy jewel. And my brain instantly thought, is that the shiny object that's way off in the distance?
Wow, that's impressive because I did not connect those dots.
I don't know. I'm like, I don't know if it's just a super shiny thing that's normal shiny and we wouldn't be able to see it, or if this is a shiny thing, because again, we just saw that there may be a curse. Is this a thing that is cursed that we have unboxed and now it is bringing pain to us?
So that was definitely the take that I had when I was in this chapter. Was like, okay, we know that something is cursed or we are cursed or whatever. Shiny box. Yeah. Great likelihood that this thing is what's bringing about all of the pain that we are experiencing on this ship. And it's interesting that, like, I think we are operating with this belief that this object is bringing about, like, the Kraken, that is like the problem it is summoned a Kraken somehow. But what is interesting is in this chapter, kind of like the 2-sentence story beat here is a person has uncovered this chest. They're trying to apparently steal what's inside. They are observed. The person doing the thieving kills the observer and then blames it on someone else. That someone else is going to get kind of be the one that gets strung up and shot.
Yes.
So like my feeling now is like, well, hold on. Is it that this thing is summoning krakens, or is the curse that it's actually like sparking this violence a la Nightblood from Brendan Sanderson?
Yeah. And like, if anyone's played Case of the Golden Idol or Return of the Golden Idol, it's like that golden idol, like anywhere this object goes, it inspires the worst in people, the most violent actions in people. I had the same thought. It's like, I wonder if the curse is really us all along. You know what I mean? It's just human nature.
We were the curse all along. That should be on every human's tombstone.
Yeah.
Beloved father, incredible mentor,
the curse all
we were the curse all along.
If anyone wants an order, we can help you get that inscribed. Just let us know.
Yes, that actually is the new Geeks and Grounds tagline.
Yeah, this is the first merch.
This is our merch opportunity.
Yeah,
we were the curse all along.
Oh my gosh.
So this is the point where I was saying earlier, like you start to see perhaps the tribalism playing a role. So the thief / murderer pins this. So first of all, like the cabinet that we're seeing is of kind of like a Asiatic, like Oriental make, it would seem like. The
I would say my assumption was that it was from one of the Formosan passengers. And I had to look up because I had actually never heard of Formosan and where that was from.
Either.
And so I looked it up. Formosan is actually now what we would call it Taiwan. Right. And Formosa actually was like a kingdom that lasted about like 500 years. So it was a relatively short-lived, like, I don't know what you call it, country, institution. I don't know.
Longer than American democracy.
Yeah. Rip.
All right.
But yeah. But yeah, so I did have to look that up because I was like, I have never heard this before. And so that's just a little cool history fact. So yeah, I assumed it's like a Formosan jewel or treasure that it seems like maybe royalty or sort of more regal folks from that country brought with them.
Because we definitely know that there are guards traveling as a part of the like Formosan unit. Like there are people that are dressed very finely. They're sitting down. And then next to them are people who are dressed in like similar garb, but have like a spear or staff or something like that. Like clearly guards. What's interesting is the thief / murderer pins the murder on a Formosan guard. And to me, like, it's such an odd moment because it's like, okay, something has been stolen from the Formosans. Why would the guard be the one that is to blame here? But if you're on a ship that in times of stress is going to be reverting to tribalism, okay, like I guess that kind of could fit. The other thing we didn't say is this is chapter 3 of the book. So like, you know, we have Kraken, we have mutiny, and then we skipped a whole bunch of middle parts to get to kind of near the beginning of the trip when this happened.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I think putting that in a timeline, because I don't know what happens in chapter 1, I don't know what happens in chapter 2, but very early on in the journey, it seems like there's already bad stuff happening. And so now I'm curious, because also what's interesting is up until this point, everything seems to be, for me, like, what did the captain do? What did the captain say? And this is an event that is not centered on the captain necessarily. The captain makes the final decision to do the firing squad that ends up killing the Formosan, but this is an event that's separate from him in a way that makes me wonder, okay, so maybe either multiple things are happening on this ship and they're very unlucky, or there's a different origin to what is going on than what I thought.
I totally agree. I mean, some of the things that stand out to me is like, one, it seems as though this theft is happening at night. That was kind of how I was reading the color contrast for as much as you can.
Right.
But the firing squad, again, reading the color contrast, seems as though it happened during the day. So it's like, this is not just like we immediately catch this guy, string them up, and then shoot them. Like there's some time. And also there's enough chill vibes following the firing squad that our boy ES has time to draw it. So
what a wild position to hold on the ship.
No kidding. But it's just like the sense of time between chapters could be stretched out over weeks, months. It also could be hours. And it's really hard to know, like, how quickly does stuff break bad once, like, this part, let's take this as an example, this murder, firing squad, theft happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something where I am hoping and assuming that as we get more chapters and we can get because I think the hardest point is I don't know when we start and I do know when we end, but I don't know when the start is. So it's like I have sort of an infinite sort of direction that the line goes in one way, even though I have the end. So I think as long as I can get to chapter
Xeno's
1.
arrow.
Yeah. So as long as I can get to the first chapter, maybe that will help me ground more of this in not just a timeline, but like get the pacing of, each of the events on that line.
Love it. Anything other big points from this experience with the murders?
I do not think so. At least not currently. Again, for folks who are listening who maybe know more and are yelling at your screens like, no, there's this big thing that you missed. We may miss it. And if so, put it in the comments, write to us. But also, we may get it next week because we're still playing this. Yeah, you go back, revisit. I'm not going to be sleepy, things like that.
Yeah. And that's actually kind of just a challenge for talking about this game in general is like, there are things that like I learned about this chapter that I didn't figure out until I was much further into the game. And so it's like the revisiting of these scenes helps you kind of figure out what's going on. So certainly there's more to be uncovered with all of this, but
I think that is the thing that it's not something I would change. It's just a personal, I'm going to have to get over it, and I know it. But I hate going to another chapter without 100%ing the current chapter I'm in and not knowing which things that I can complete versus which things I can't quite yet. That's the thing that's hardest for me because I really love just knowing. I would love to know, hey, you got all the clues for now. Just move on. Because sometimes I feel like I'm walking around just hoping for something and it's not actually there.
This is actually like similar. I think we talked about this a bit last week where it's like the thing that I want, the game does well, which is like kind of forcing you to move forward. The thing that I disliked about that is like sometimes your pocket watch starts vibrating and you don't really have a choice. You have to follow it in that moment to the next thing. And it's like, I actually just needed like a couple more seconds with that last thing. And then I promise you, I will come back to this. It's like when you're playing like an RPG and you see a path that goes to the side and it's like, okay, I know that's not the main path. I just want to see what's at the end of that cave wall before I keep going. And it's like someone is like holding a pocket watch saying, yeah, I know you see that path, but I'm going to make you follow the main quest line before you can go back here.
Yeah. I completely relate to that, especially playing Expedition 33 right now. So I think that takes us to the final chapter that we're going to discuss today, and that is Soldiers of the Sea, which is such a doozy. I just have to say, like, this is
horrific.
The longest section, I think. Like, I think it had like 8 or 9 parts to it. It is also the most horrific. Like, I thought the Kraken was bad. The scary stuff that we encounter, the creatures we encounter in this chapter, I honestly felt like were scarier than the Kraken and worse.
I fully agree with that. Like, Okay, so broadly speaking, this is just a chapter of death and death and death. Like you find a
More so than the other chapters of
more so
death,
than the
to be
others.
clear.
Yes. Like it is you like kind of begin by finding one corpse on the side of like
Hmm.
an alley of the ship. And you're like, oh, this guy looks like he's been stabbed from behind with some sort of long thing. And then it's like, oh, I got to go back around the corner to figure out what happened here. And so it's like, okay, I've gone back around the corner. Now I'm going to jump into another corpse. And oh, lots of people have been stabbed by long things. And then you find more corpses. Oh, wait, there's more people that have been stabbed by these long things.
Hmm.
And it is just a matter of time before you see what I can only describe as giant, like horseshoe snow crabs.
Yeah, like
with
spider crabs.
spider crabs with mounted, cloaked riders. Like it gets eldritch. And I was like
Yeah.
freaked out playing this.
And I think I couldn't tell. And again, to the visuals credit, this is where my imagination was definitely doing a lot of work, making it even worse than what it really was. Because the faces also seemed like that they had tentacles. Like these were inhuman faces. There were like things dripping. It was scary. If I ever
Yes.
saw one of these, I would just perish immediately on the spot.
It's like someone took the monsters from Pirates of the Caribbean, like the monster humanoids,
Hmm.
and said, we're going to make them scary. Like they're uncomfortable. We're going to make
Hmm.
them scary.
Yeah.
And because of the art style, because of the work your imagination's doing, like it is tough. It is tough to watch.
Well, and
You go,
what I loved was, okay, so that first time you see them in the sort of side alley, I don't know if it's just because of how I positioned myself or if that's the game, but you can also only initially see them where you're looking into these narrow, like, wall slits. I don't know what to
yeah,
call them. They're
yeah,
not windows. And so they're just like these sort of eye shaped or like eye width, and height rectangles. So you're not even getting a clear, good view of them. You are seeing like, here's a angle here, and then you walk over to get another angle. And so you're seeing limited parts of the violence in that first encounter, and that makes it even more horrifying than seeing the full scene, as you move through the chapter later. Oh, it was really, honestly, really impactful, but I would love to never see it again.
yes, agreed. But you will be forced
Oh
to.
God.
I think like so story beats, like kind of coming back to that concept,
Hmm.
what I think is a good way to think about it. As you've worked backwards and figure out like what led to this violence, it
Hmm.
seems as though the ship, after kind of these, escalating moments of
Hmm.
violence and cruelty, is turning around and it's making its way back. Uh, and a storm is a coming. That is kind of the instigating thing that you see it
Hmm.
kind of once you've unlocked all the chapters. And it's like flash, lightning strikes a person on
Oh,
deck
this was another moment that like had my jaw drop during it, because when you enter that scene, it's the first time you're not on the ground too. You're in the rigging, and it was such a cool yet disorienting moment. And then to see the lightning in front of you with the person, oh wow.
And it's so cool seeing lightning captured in like a still like
Hmm.
physical form. Like you can't walk through it because it has like solidity in the same way that
Yeah.
a gunshot in these still frames has solidity.
Hmm.
That like the artistry of that I thought was so incredible.
Yeah.
But it's like something bad is afoot. Like, you
If
hear
you peek
curse.
over,
Yes.
the side of the ship, and there's a little spider crab just coming up.
Oh
Not so
my
little,
God.
honestly, but
Yeah. It's like, you hear the word curse among sailors and you think, all right,
hmm.
okay, my modern sensibilities are not bought into this. But the second a single person gets struck by lightning and explodes, well, I'm gonna have to agree that a curse may be afoot. And then,
Yeah.
you start seeing giant mounted crabs with dark cloaked riders, and yeah, a curse
Yeah.
is here.
I don't know what else would it be but a curse at this point? And the horrifying part before we get into sort of the action of this moment is you see pretty much everyone is out and about on the ship. Like all of the sort of like people in the rigging, there's a bunch of people in the deck. You see, like, this isn't not a ton of people are awake, maybe they can hide out in their rooms. This is all hands are on deck. They are all in immediate danger's way. And they all try to fight. Like, there's a guy who tries to throw an axe at one of these things. I think they try to set fire to one of them. And of course, in a lot of these cases, like, the fire ends up burning one of the sailors. I think the axe hits the crab but doesn't kill it. You know, they're all kind of getting in each other's crosshairs as they're also getting stabbed by these spiky spider crab things.
Yeah, the crabs shoot spikes out of them, and it turns out that's what all these spiky things have been that you've been encountering all along. So it's interesting too, like, it felt as though you're seeing moments where the crew is rallying as you're coming through. It's like, okay, like, everyone's tackling this thing, like, they've got a real shot. The next scene, well, one guy survived. Okay, it looks like they took this one out and they're dragging it below to get it out of the way. Well, it had a final, like, death rattle and shot a spike through the wall, and that's how the last guy died. Like, you see moments where it's like, because this game is having you navigate within a chapter through these different parts, you see, like, the tide of battle moving in a way. And I thought that was just, like, such a cool storytelling moment. Like, it's not just monsters arrive, flash, everyone's dead.
Yeah.
And we know that, like, this is chapter 7. So if chapter 9 is when
this is 6, I think.
Is it 6?
Yes, 6.
Okay, so if we know that, like, eventually, like, chapter 9 is where the Kraken is going to leave, then this is not the end, right? Like, this is perhaps the beginning of the troubles, and it's only going to get worse over the next 3 chapters until the Kraken leaves. And this is lightning, you know, cloaked crab riders. Like, it looks bad.
Yeah, no, it looks bad. It sounds bad. It feels bad. This is honestly bad. And while I felt like all 3 chapters were super intense this time around, like, this one for me was definitely, it got the heart rate going. It was the hardest one for me to go through because of everything that was going on and the just sheer mass amount of destruction and murder happening. The others felt much more contained in that way, where it's like, which is so weird for describing murder like this, but we're like, there's a bludgeoning, there's a knife, there's something that I can kind of put my mind around, and it's sort of a one-to-one thing happening, where this was a more mass situation, and that was really intense.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, you are seeing bodies strewn all about. You go to highlight them with your compass, and it's like, okay, well, this person's been stabbed, and that person's been crushed, and that person's been spiked. And there's no room to breathe. Like, everywhere you turn, there is another body for you to be like, well, got another one for the insurance book. I know how this guy died. I don't know who he is. I'm going to call him Button Shirt.
Right.
But old Button Shirt, he ain't looking too good.
No. And I think this is the first time I also felt the pressure of the compass telling me to go more.
Yes.
Because I think until this point, I had not felt sort of what you were saying, where you wanted to stop and investigate the scenes and let the compass, like, chill out for a second. I would just go through all of the acts and then walk through the chapter at my own pace. And so I was just very content letting the compass take me until it was done. And then I knew I could, like, hunker down. This one, probably about 4 sort of chapters in, or not chapters, sort of parts of the chapter in, I was like, oh my God. We're already 4 bodies deep, 4 scenes deep. When will it stop? And so I think this was done intentionally, and it was really impactful. But this was a lot.
I think it's part of the storytelling, and it really forces you to deal with the fact that, like, there are like 50 people on this boat, and you have to chart what happened to all of them. And that is an overwhelming task. And in like the meta mechanics of this force you to feel that weight, I think. So yeah, major props to the game for that.
Yeah. Is there anything else in Soldiers of the Sea that you wanted to highlight?
Nothing else that stood out to me, except for just kind of a general sense of what I could not get a sense of is, was there ever a point of hubris where the people on board are like, we got this, and so we're going to like stand and fight? Or was it just like, there is no choice here? It's like, the ship is going to move at the speed the ship is moving, and you can fight or you can be stabbed, and that is it. Like, I couldn't really get a sense for that yet. Like, was there a degree of pride related to this that we can maybe say like, oh, the humans, like if only they had known to do blank, they could have done better. Or was it just like, this is all happening urgently in the space of like 2 minutes and 10 rounds of combat? Like I couldn't get a sense for that yet. And so I'm really curious about like that motivation side of things again.
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like what's nice too is I think as a player with the game structure, you can insert your own motivations. I think if you are a person who wants to see these scenes and interpret some of the lines, because there are some spoken lines throughout this, you could, I think, in some cases interpret them as them rallying. I think there's a moment, especially right before they throw like the lantern or the fire, like they like, I think we got him, like these moments of, okay, maybe we got one of them. Because also, I don't think we mentioned, but there's like 2 or 3, like
there's a lot of these guys.
There are a lot of these guys. So yeah, I think you could take it either way. And I think maybe it's one of those sort of, was it Rorschach tests of where are you at? What are you thinking a little bit in terms of just how you want to take that story?
Yeah. I'm right there with you. Yeah. Nothing else stood out to me as a part of kind of the narrative at this point, just trying to clock all the people that died and how they died.
Such a cheerful game.
Yeah. Feeling good.
Yeah. So I think that's where we'll close the deep dive for today. For folks interested in continuing the conversation, next week is our last episode with Obra Dinn. We're going to be going through all the rest of the chapters, all of the plot, all of the sordid details, and try to figure out what exactly is going on. If you would like to share your thoughts on the game, whether the conclusion, any feedback about it, any experiences you had, feel free to send an email, write in the Discord, or leave a voicemail. I'll put the link in the description, and it may get featured in the podcast. So feel free, leave those and let us know what you think and what you're taking away from the game and any favorite murders that you've witnessed. I don't know.
Let us know about your favorite murder.
Yeah, please tell us.
Oh my. Any final points of housekeeping for everyone as we go toward the end of the month?
Yes, we are going to have our hangout next week, as of this, from the recording of this podcast, May 31st. Please mark your calendars. It's going to be fun. We'll talk a little bit about Lost Records, or we'll open the floor for any Lost Records because we had to move that hangout and cancel it and shift it to May. But we'll mostly, I think, be focusing on Obra Dinn, probably some blueprints, probably some Expedition 33, but it's really a chance for us to hang out, chat about the game, share what we're up to, and just hang out together as a community.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of community, if you're feeling a little aggravated after playing this, strongly encourage you to take this time, go to Red Lobster. I believe it is Crab Week. This is your moment. Get your vengeance for the good ship Obra Dinn.
I'm ready.
Bye.
Bye.